"You filthy piece of trash. Your garbage is ruining our VIP bay. Get out of here." The vicious screams of a resort contractor cut through the peaceful morning air. He violently snatched the wooden oar right out of Clara's scarred hands. Without a second thought, he hurled it far out into the ocean. Then, he kicked her small woven basket. Dozens of delicate pearl oysters spilled out and sank straight into the dark water. Clara just stood there. She was completely helpless. She had to watch her only livelihood disappear beneath the crashing waves. But right at that exact moment, up on a massive superyacht docked in the distance, a quiet man was watching everything. He was holding his little girl tightly in his arms. He saw the whole thing happen. "Hey, guys. You know, the resilience of a pure soul is like a lighthouse. It can never be put out by the dark storms of life. Hit that subscribe button right now to join us on this journey of finding the good in the world. And if you truly believe in doing the right thing, I want you to declare it down in the comments below. Type this out right now. I vow to keep my soul pure and trust in God's justice." Let's get back to the story. Clara wasn't just some random girl on the beach looking for handouts. She had this massive, deep burned scar running all the way down her right arm. To some superficial people, it looked ugly. But to the people in her small fishing village, it was a profound badge of honor. She got that awful scar years ago, when she ran straight into a burning building to save a trapped neighbor. She survived. But her life didn't get any easier after that. She spent every single day out on the water, under the blistering, unforgiving sun. She wasn't just fishing for herself. She was actually spending hours cleaning up the toxic eco-waste that was choking the fragile coral reefs. And while she did that, she carefully and patiently farmed wild pearls. She didn't buy fancy clothes or nice food for herself. Every single penny she made went straight to the local orphanage. She refused to let those little kids grow up feeling abandoned and unloved by the world. She had a fierce spirit that just wouldn't quit. But the guy yelling at her right now, he didn't care about her sacrifices or her charity work. He was the head contractor for a massive billion-dollar luxury resort project, being built right on the shoreline. To him, Clara was just an ugly eyesore. She was a literal piece of trash, standing in the way of his massive corporate payday. He thought he could just bully her into leaving, by breaking her spirit. He had absolutely no idea who was watching him from afar. The quiet man standing on the yacht was Arthur. He wasn't just some wealthy tourist passing through the bay. He was the undisputed king of the ocean. He personally owned the Royal Pearl Corporation, and controlled the largest seaport in the entire Pacific. But today, he wasn't wearing a tailored Italian suit or wearing an expensive watch. He was dressed in faded, worn-out fisherman clothes. He had brought his 7-year-old daughter here, trying to find a miracle. Ever since she lost her mother in a tragic accident, the little girl had fallen into a deep, dark depression. She hadn't spoken a single word in months. She hadn't smiled, laughed, or even cried. Arthur had spent millions of dollars on the best therapists and doctors in the world. Nothing worked. All of his money and power felt completely useless. He just wanted his little girl back. He was desperate for a quiet place where her broken heart could finally heal. Down on the hot sand, Clara slowly wiped the dirt off her bruised knees. She didn't cry. She didn't scream back at the angry contractor. She just calmly started picking up the few empty shells that hadn't washed away yet. That is when she finally noticed the little girl. Arthur and his daughter had quietly walked down from the wooden pier. The little girl was staring blankly at the sand, looking completely lost in her own dark world. Clara saw the heavy, suffocating sadness in the child's eyes. She knew that exact look. It was the very same look the orphans always had when they first arrived at the shelter. Clara walked over very slowly, so she wouldn't scare her. She didn't push or try to make forced conversation. She didn't ask intrusive questions. She just reached into her deep pocket and pulled out a beautiful, perfectly smooth conch shell. She washed it gently in the tide to make it shine. Then, she knelt down in the wet sand. She held it out to the little girl. With a warm, incredibly genuine smile. If you hold this close to your ear, you can hear the ocean singing just for you, Clara whispered softly. The little girl hesitated for a moment. She looked at Clara's badly scarred hand. But she didn't flinch or pull away. Slowly, she reached out her tiny fingers and took the shell. She carefully put it up to her ear. For the first time in almost a year, the corners of the little girl's mouth turned up. She smiled. It was a tiny, fragile smile. But it was absolutely real. Arthur felt his heart completely stop in his chest. He stood there in his old fisherman clothes, completely speechless and holding his breath. This poor young woman with the scarred arm had just done what the most expensive doctors in the world could not do. Sometimes, true love and genuine kindness can break through the thickest walls of ice. It doesn't cost a single dime to be kind. But the impact is truly priceless. If you agree with that, take a second and write it down right now. I vow to keep my soul pure and trust in God's justice. But the peaceful, healing moment didn't last long. The contractor turned around and saw Clara talking to people he assumed were just regular, broke tourists. His face turned bright red with absolute fury. I told you to get out of here, you beggar, he roared, marching aggressively toward them. Now you're bothering the guests and begging for money? You are a disgusting disease on this beautiful beach. He stormed over. His large fists clenched tight. He was ready to destroy whatever tiny bit of dignity she had left. He noticed the small, secure bucket nearby, where Clara kept her most rare, antique pearl shells safely hidden. He raised his heavy steel-toed work boot. He was aiming right for it. He was about to crush her entire livelihood. And all the orphans' food money. Into dust. Crack. The sickening sound of thick, antique shells shattering under heavy steel echoed across the quiet beach. Clara gasped. She dropped to her knees in the wet sand, desperately trying to shield the remaining shells with her badly scarred arms. But the contractor didn't stop. He kicked her bucket over, violently grinding his boot into the most valuable pearls she had spent years carefully cultivating. Look at you, crawling in the dirt exactly where you belong. He laughed, spitting at her feet. I own this beach now. I own you. And by tomorrow morning, your pathetic little orphanage is going to be bulldozed to make room for my new employee parking lot. Clara's heart shattered into pieces. It wasn't about the money for her, it was about the 20 hungry kids waiting for her back home. She had always believed in creating true financial freedom, not to buy fancy things, but to guarantee those orphans would never end up on the streets again. She had never been afraid of failure, but looking at her destroyed work, tears finally pooled in her eyes. She had nothing left to fight back with. But suddenly, a large, calloused hand gently pulled her back from the broken glass and sharp edges. It was the quiet fisherman. Arthur had handed his smiling daughter to a massive bodyguard, who had quietly approached from the yacht. He stepped forward and stood directly between Clara and the enraged contractor. He didn't yell. He didn't raise his fists. He just stared at the contractor, with a cold, terrifying calmness that made the air feel instantly heavier. When arrogant people think they are standing on top of the world, that is exactly when God steps in to humble them. If you believe that pride always comes before the fall, write this down with me right now. I vow to keep my soul pure and trust in God's justice. The contractor scoffed, sizing up Arthur's faded, salty clothes. Who the hell are you supposed to be? He sneered. Another homeless beggar looking for a handout? Get out of my way, before I have my security team throw you off the pier. Arthur didn't even blink. He calmly reached into his worn-out pocket and pulled out a sleek, custom-made satellite phone. He dialed a single number. He put it to his ear and spoke 2 simple sentences. Freeze all capital for the South Bay Resort project and liquidate the lead contractor's firm immediately. He hung up and put the phone back in his pocket. The contractor burst out laughing. Are you putting on a play? He mocked, wiping a tear of laughter from his eye. You think you can just make a fake phone call and scare me? I work for the Royal Pearl Corporation, you idiot. They are the biggest conglomerate in the entire world. But his arrogant laughter was cut incredibly short. His own cell phone started ringing frantically in his pocket. He pulled it out and saw the caller ID. It was the global vice president of the Royal Pearl Corporation. His boss's boss. The contractor immediately straightened his posture, cleared his throat, and answered with a greedy, confident smile. "Yes, sir. How can I help you this morning?" The voice on the other end was so loud and furious that Clara could hear it clearly through the speaker. "You absolute fool!" The VP screamed at the top of his lungs. "What the hell did you just do?" The contractor's face went completely pale. "Sir, I don't understand. I'm just clearing the beach like we planned. You just threatened the chairman of the entire company, you idiot." The phone slipped right out of his sweaty fingers. It hit the sand, with a dull thud. The contractor slowly looked up at the man in the dirty fisherman clothes. Arthur's cold, piercing eyes hadn't changed. "Sir," the contractor stammered, his knees literally shaking under his own weight. I didn't know. I was just trying to do my job. Please. I have a mortgage. I have car payments. You can't do this to me." He dropped to his knees, begging and crying, to the very man he had just insulted. Arthur looked down at him with absolute disgust. "You didn't care about this woman's livelihood, you didn't care about the young orphans who rely on her to survive. You only care about yourself. You are fired. Your company is blacklisted from every single port in the Pacific. Now get off my beach before I have you arrested for assault." The contractor scrambled to his feet, hyperventilating, and ran away like a terrified child. Arthur took a deep breath, letting the anger fade away into the ocean breeze. He turned around and looked at Clara. She was still sitting in the sand, completely shocked by what had just happened. Arthur knelt down right next to her. He didn't care about getting his pants muddy or kneeling on the broken shells. He gently took her heavily scarred hand in his own. "For a year, I have watched my daughter suffer in absolute silence," Arthur said softly, his voice finally breaking with heavy emotion. "I offered the world's best doctors millions of dollars to fix her. They all failed. But you just gave her a broken shell and a pure smile. And you brought my little girl back to life." He reached into his pocket. One last time. He didn't pull out a phone. He pulled out a small, black velvet box. He opened it, revealing a massive, flawless, one-of-a-kind black ocean pearl. "I am buying this entire resort project today," Arthur told her, looking deep into her eyes. "I am signing the deed over to your orphanage, so you will have true financial freedom forever. But more importantly, I am asking if you would allow my daughter and I to be a part of your beautiful, incredible life." Clara covered her mouth, tears streaming down her face as she looked over at the little girl. The little girl ran over, throwing her arms around Clara's neck and hugging her tightly. It is the most beautiful thing in the world. When a good heart finally gets the ultimate reward it deserves. Let's celebrate this incredible moment together. Leave a comment down below right now. I vow to keep my soul pure and trust in God's justice. Clara didn't just move on to that massive superyacht to live a lazy life of luxury. She took her new resources and expanded her orphanage into a massive campus. She built a marine conservation center right there on the beach, teaching kids how to farm fish and grow vegetables. She hired the locals, protected the coral reefs, and gave thousands of abandoned children a real, loving home. Arthur stood by her side every single day, proud to be married to the most resilient woman he had ever met. Not because her skin was perfect, but because her soul was completely untouchable. The most valuable pearl in the world isn't found hidden at the bottom of the ocean. It is found inside a heart that knows how to love even when it is hurting. Thank you so much for listening to this story today. If this touched your heart, hit that subscribe button right now. Join our family, so we can keep bringing you stories that matter. And for one final time, remind yourself of your own inner strength in the comments. I vow to keep my soul pure and trust in God's justice. I will see you guys in the next video.